Welcome to Cynic Critique, where we get real with cult films. I'm your host, Thomas, and I'm here with my brother and co-host, my bro-host, Brian.
Hello!
And a month after his tragic passing, we are shining the bat signal into the sky and the spotlight on Val Kilmer. As for the next 4 weeks, we will talk about some of his underrated films, starting with 2003's Blind Horizon and 2004's Spartan. So yeah, good old Val Kilmer.
Yeah, sad year in terms of him passing. He meant a lot to me in my childhood, especially, as he was my first cinematic experience with Batman Forever, a film that's still very dear to me. So it's been nice actually watching some of his films that I haven't seen before to do this spotlight for the 4 weeks. And it's also been nice revisiting some of his films as well, where he really is a magnetic presence on screen. There's some films we've watched that we won't be covering as well, that we're hoping to sprinkle in throughout the year to cover more of his films than we can in just a month.
I know we've got one sort of planned.
Yeah, pretty
later.
much immediately after.
Well, I mean, later in the year as well.
Definitely. And I've got an idea for another 2 or 3.
Yeah.
But he's an amazing presence on screen, the weight he can bring to a role when needed, and the levity he can bring to a role when required as well.
Yeah, definitely.
He's as good a character actor as he is a main character leading actor, yeah. Anyway, I'll start us off with 2003's Blind Horizon.
The bullet ricocheted off his skull, missed his brain, he's in a coma.
What do you do whatever it takes to snap his ass back to reality?
On a budget of $5 million, and sadly only grossing $202,737.
Yeah.
It's directed by Michael Houseman, who has done a film more recently called Edge of the World. I've not seen it, and tons of music videos. Written by F. Paul Benz, who's been an editing assistant on some of the Oliver Stone films, such as The Doors and JFK.
Right.
And co-written by Steve Tomlin, who I couldn't really find any standout work from, sadly.
No.
It's quite a unique film, this, but we'll get into it anyway. The synopsis, as IMDb has it, is, at the hospital, Frank comes out of a coma with amnesia. The sheriff wants to know who shot him. Later, Frank remembers that something's happening to the president. Who is Frank? Well, that's Val Kilmer. Val Kilmer plays Frank Kavanagh. Neve Campbell plays Chloe Richards. Sam Shepard plays Sheriff Jack Kolb. Noble Willingham plays Deputy Shirl Cash. Amy Smart, ding ding, links to last week's episode, as Liz Culpepper. That cannot be a real surname. And then we've got Faye Dunaway as Miss K. There's obviously a few other actors in this, but they're the main players of the game.
Is that supposed to be like misc? Like miscellaneous?
Oh, I'd not really thought about that, but that works, doesn't it, really, for how her character is, I guess? Because she's quite an enigma, isn't she?
Yeah, I'm just looking at it then.
Do you want to start the conversation on this?
On thoughts and whatnot, yeah?
Yeah.
It's a usual amnesiac sort of character, I guess.
Yeah.
Mystery thriller. But no, I do think there's something about this that kind of stands out, and I can't really explain what that is exactly. But Kilmer is a great performance in this. That's a great performance.
Sorry.
And it was nice to see him again with Sam Shepard, I think.
Yeah.
They'd done a film previous, but we'll get into
we'll be
that
discussing that
next week.
Yeah.
Yeah. Or after this episode for us. Yeah, I don't know. I was a bit surprised that the story sort of goes kind of as big and sort of thing with the president, because I didn't really know what the film was about.
Yeah.
So I was just expecting it to be a bit of a who shot him, really, but then it just goes into this bigger picture stuff, and I think it's quite well done, quite well pieced together. Now, I'm not saying it's amazing, but I do think it's worth a watch, especially for Kilmer fans.
Yeah, there's a great mystery box concept to this, isn't there, in a way?
Yeah.
With who's done what and why.
Yeah.
Because it starts as a small town mystery thriller.
Yeah.
And then it escalates into, I guess, espionage.
Political thriller?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it reminded me a lot of the comic book and video game 13, which has also had 2 TV series, I think, because one of them TV series is the 2-part miniseries in which Val Kilmer actually stars in.
Yeah.
Because that's to do with an amnesiac spy sort of thing, with a lot of political intrigue and so on as well.
Yeah, I think a lot of the characters in this sort of have a good little sort of side stories or little mysteries around themselves as well that keep you invested as well, and I think that's really well done.
Kind of Twin Peaks.
Yeah. I think it's hard to do a story like this and not really get it connected to Twin Peaks at this point.
Yeah.
Once you end up with just some guy visiting small town and people just go, yeah, Twin Peaks.
Because Twin Peaks is the exact sort of town in that you could walk into the bar and say that you're looking for somebody driving a red Camaro, and the bartender would reply, "No one here drives a red Camaro."
Yeah, that's pretty much.
That's something that happens in this. The bartender is 100% sure no one in this town drives a red Camaro.
Yeah.
Yet Val Kilmer in the audience knows someone does because we've seen it.
Yeah.
It's got a really good opening.
Yeah.
Because we actually see the shooting at the beginning, don't we?
Vividly.
Yeah.
Just enough for you to know what's happened, but not who's
Yeah.
involved exactly.
And it really keeps you guessing as to what direction it's going to take and who's on whose side as well is a big part of this.
Yeah.
That starts to play out. Because Neve Campbell's quite a shady character claiming to be his girlfriend / fiance or something, but there's something not quite right there.
Yeah.
Amy Smart, who's a nurse in this, she seems to have her own agenda as well somehow, but also a slight romance with Kilmer.
Yeah. She's probably the strangest character in this for me.
It's a really unique film in that way, and I think part of the problem of it being underrated is its title.
Yeah.
Blind Horizon's a cool title, I'll give it that, but it doesn't say much for the film.
No. And when you're looking through Val Kilmer's list of films wanting to find the one where he plays a blind man, you'd believe it to be this.
Yeah, exactly. What I was going to say about the title is this film had title changes.
Yeah.
It was originally titled Black Point,
Yeah.
after the small town in New Mexico where this story takes place.
Yeah, and I think that's a pretty good title.
And I think that title is a lot more fitting to this than Blind Horizon. Blind Horizon works,
Yeah.
but I think Black Point is very direct to me anyway. And I think that's what it needs in the early 2000s.
Yeah, I think it's definitely a more captivating title for audiences
Yeah.
as well. The name Black Point is something I would gravitate to over Blind Horizon. Blind Horizon's a pretty cool title anyway. It does kind of sum up the film as it's looking for that horizon, I guess. Can't see it.
Yeah. I do have some problems with this.
Of course you do.
Not many. It's mostly a pacing issue.
Yeah.
The film's an hour 40.
It feels like it's like 2 hours. It may be like a 20-minute difference.
It feels like it really drags in places where it shouldn't feel like it's dragging at all.
It is one of them stories as well where when you do compare it to Twin Peaks, you do think maybe it'd have worked as a miniseries. And there are a lot of films that seem to have that issue, I think.
And a lot of miniseries, I think that proves it.
Yeah.
With Twin Peaks.
Yeah.
And also Wayward Pines.
Yeah.
That's got that sort of similar intrigue.
Yeah.
About this like small town with some shadier goings on.
Yeah. 'Cause I think you could have done probably, I don't know, 6 episodes, say, and just expand on some of them other characters as well. Because they're all rather interesting.
You could probably get away with doing it with a character having their own perspective episodes.
Yeah.
Where it would all link up properly as a bigger picture, but the mystery builds.
Yeah. But
as you learn more about that character.
Yeah. But in a way, I feel like you need more time. But as you said, it kind of feels like it kind of drags anyway. But I think that's because of it trying to juggle these different characters as well.
Yeah.
That the part you're interested in, it doesn't get round to it quick enough, or it's not a problem in any way, I don't think. But it does feel like it's just running its course a bit too much, I guess. But yeah, it's an enjoyable film, and I wouldn't say it's not. And like I said, if you're a fan of Val Kilmer, it's definitely worth a watch.
I think it's even worth a watch if you're not.
Well, yeah. If you just like your thriller films, it's definitely a good one to...
Because it's a lot different from your Manchurian Candidates. And
yeah, that was another one it sort of reminded me of.
Because that's that small town aspect, how they lean into that heavily for the first half, if not 3/4, really makes the differences for the genre, I think.
Yeah.
But maybe we've kind of spoiled that by saying it's more of a conspiracy thriller than a small town psychological thriller. I don't know.
If you look it up, it does say conspiracy thriller as its primary genre on IMDb.
But I think it's worth checking out just for Val Kilmer's acting alone.
Yeah.
And he had some investment in this. I don't mean financial investment.
No.
Just interest, I guess, because he lived on a ranch in New Mexico nearby, apparently.
Yeah.
And this film was done as part of a New Mexico film investment program.
Yeah.
Which apparently was something Val Kilmer had interest in as well. He had connections to that, so he agreed to participate in this. So I'm guessing he didn't take much money to work on this film. I think he maybe saw it as a bit of a passion project. I don't know.
Yeah,
Not
maybe.
a passion project, but as a courtesy
Yeah.
because of how close it is and his involvement with the project. And apparently there's a majority of the cast are non-professional actors at this time anyway, contributing to raw and authentic feel for the film.
Yeah.
I think it kind of shows, because I was looking up some of the background actors and stuff that play a small part, so they're not really in anything.
No.
Which is a shame for them.
Yeah.
Steve-O, I guess, as people will know him as anyway, Stephen Glover.
Yeah.
He has a little cameo in this. Did you see that?
Yeah. They changed what it was going to be as well, apparently.
Yeah.
He was supposed to have a bit of a scuffle with Kilmer at some point, but they changed it.
Yeah, apparently they changed it just the night before as well.
Yeah.
Which is odd.
Yeah.
So instead of having a bit of a fight, it just involved him wearing a cowboy hat and smiling.
Which sounds really weird when you think about it, because it's just like, oh, you know your scene where you get to fight Kilmer. Yeah, you're not having that now, you're just wearing a cowboy hat.
Yeah. I'm not terrible with music anyway, but I'm not familiar with the band Machine Head, are you? I'm assuming you've seen this.
Yeah. Apparently they were commissioned to write a couple of songs for this film.
Yeah, I'll be honest, I don't actually remember any songs.
No.
It is also a while ago since we watched this now.
Yeah. But
We've been blasting Val Kilmer films.
Yeah. Even if you looked up the music on this, there are 4 names.
Would that be the band members then?
I never thought of that, but I don't believe they are. I don't remember it saying they were band members of Machine Head.
Tell you what, you get the names and I'll get Machine Head and we'll see if they correlate.
Well, I've got the names here. Tobias.
Right, members of Machine Head. There's no Tobias.
Mark Killian.
There is no Mark Killian.
Christopher Mann.
There is no Christopher Mann.
Adam Schiff.
There is no Adam Schiff.
Yeah, I didn't think so.
Those 4 men are not Machine Head.
No, I didn't think they would be, because I've got a few things of what they worked on.
Okay.
Tobias Ennis. He was an interesting one for me.
Great name.
I thought so as well. He did the music for the Spider-Man 3 video game and the Matrix Path of Neo video game.
Oh, 2 great games.
That's what I thought.
I love Path of Neo so much. And Spider-Man 3 weren't as terrible as everyone says it is.
And then I'll go to Adam Schiff, who also worked on the Matrix Path of Neo video game.
Nice.
On the music. And the Animatrix.
Oh,
so
right,
he must
okay.
really love the Matrix.
Yeah, who doesn't?
And that kind of links to Christopher Mann, who worked on Animatrix as well.
Right, okay.
And the Chronicles of Riddick Dark Fury, the animated movie, I believe that is. And then Mark Killian did The Ward, which is John Carpenter's last film.
Yes.
Daybreak, the TV series. Which
the awesome one with the time loop thing.
Yeah. Which
great show.
Numerous times, I feel, on this.
Yeah, we're going to have to cover it.
He did Replicas, the Keanu Reeves movie.
Yeah, I've heard of that.
Yeah, and then the one that really stood out to me was Pitch Perfect.
Great stuff with Anna Kendrick. I only just learnt she was in it recently when looking up to see if she was in Accountant 2, which I won't spoil if she is or not.
I think people will know by now.
And speaking of Pitch Black, though, it looks like we're getting a 4th live-action Riddick film.
Yeah.
Apparently Vincent Diesel's teased it.
Yeah.
You don't believe his name's Vincent Diesels?
And Vincent Carfuel.
Yeah. You don't believe Vincent Carfuel?
That sounds like a really cool guy to me. I don't know why. Yeah.
Do you have anything else to add on Blind Horizon?
Unfortunately, I don't feel I do.
The thing is, with it being such a mystery and how the mystery unravels, it's hard to really say much without spoiling it, I think.
Yeah.
Like, you don't want to say who's behind what and who's on what side and what side is the right side and if there is a right side and if the president is even involved.
Yeah. I do think Sam Shepard's Sheriff Jack Cole was a really good character.
Yeah, in fact, I think I have a quote from him.
Probably, because he had a lot of good dialogue with Noble Willingham's deputy, didn't he?
Yeah. In fact, I think the first line he says in this, from ass to appetite. I don't know what that means. But that's the sort of dialogue you can get in this.
Weren't that from Deputy Cash?
It might have been, actually.
Yeah. I'm going to say Deputy Cash had a lot of really weird stuff. He was quite funny. But yeah, I thought they were pretty good characters, the sheriff and the deputy, though.
Yeah.
Like you said, if you were doing a series, I'd have loved more of them too.
Definitely.
Or just a longer film, I'd have loved a bit more of them too. I'd like to see if there was anything cut from this. I never saw anything about
I couldn't find anything, and
I know low-budget films do usually try and cut everything before they film it as well.
Yeah.
More so than your bigger ones.
That's kind of Nolan's take, though. I think that's something he's carried with him since his amateur days.
Yeah, I think it's a good thing to have, though, in filmmaking.
Thing is, if you're writing a script and you're directing, you should be able to visualize it, and then you're going to know what can be cut.
Yeah.
It's a case of trusting yourself to be a good editor on your own words, isn't it, really?
Yeah.
And a lot of people want to keep it in because they don't want to let it go, I guess.
Yeah.
But you've got to, what's the phrase? Is it killing your darlings?
Yeah, but sometimes I think cutting them things that you do notice sort of like, well, this later scene won't make sense or something like that. So you do have to do a bit of rewriting, I think, and that's where a lot of problems come in on filmmaking, I believe.
Yeah, like plot holes or weird logic gaps and stuff.
I'm usually a bit forgiving on it. Just if the film actually works and it's an enjoyable ride as you go, I don't think them things should be an issue. But if they're the things you are picking up on, and I don't really believe you're truly enjoying yourself, or it is just a huge plot hole. But yeah, big studio stuff really wind me up if they're opening them.
Yeah, because they should know better.
Yeah.
And they've got the money to have enough people looking over it and preventing that from happening.
Did you want to move on, or?
I can move on if you can, because like I said, if I keep talking about it, I'm going to spoil the mystery. And I'd prefer not to do that.
Alright, then we might have a bit of a similar problem on the next film, because that's a bit of a mystery as well. 2004's Spartan.
I need a man who can unquestionably follow orders.
I am here to get the girl back, sir. And there is nothing I will not do.
Written and directed by David Mamet.
Unless you want to say it like Val Kilmer does in the audio commentary. But apparently the theatre guys call him David Mamet.
Yeah. David Mamet, or David Mamet. He's the writer-director. This had a budget of, I find this a strange number, and I don't know why. Well, I do know why, but it's $19,250,000. I don't know why it's that $250,000 that really gets me. And it grossed a whopping $8,112,712. So yeah, it didn't even make half its money back.
Sad times.
Yeah. What can I say? In 2004, Val Kilmer just wasn't a draw. It stars, obviously, Val Kilmer as Robert Scott, Derek Luke as Curtis, William H. Macy as Stoddard, Ed O'Neill as Birch, Tia Texada as Jackie Black, Johnny Mesner as Grace, Clark Gregg as Miller, and Kristen Bell as Laura Newton. Synopsis from IMDb is the investigation into a kidnapping of the daughter of a high-ranking US government official. I feel like there's supposed to be more to that in the description. Yeah, Val Kilmer's like the guy investigating this kidnapping case anyway. So what are your thoughts on our second watch of this?
This could actually be my third.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Oh, do you believe you may have watched it on TV at some point?
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, it won't surprise me.
Maybe before I bought the DVD.
Yeah. Yeah, it won't surprise me either.
But I think this is an absolute underrated classic.
Yeah?
Yeah.
That good?
Mm-hmm. Wow. I think it's very good. I think it's some of Mamet's best work that seems to have gone really underlooked.
I'm going to say, looking at
overlooked, would it
looking at his other films, for me, there was only one that really had the edge over this one. But other than that...
Was it The Edge? Does he write The Edge?
Yes, he does.
Oh, that's incredible stuff.
One of my favourite films of all time. To be fair, it was more when I was looking into this where I was actually appreciating the actual story of it. Well, Kilmer's character and everything like that, and other characters within the film as well. Because while watching it, I was just thinking it's just a traditional sort of thriller, if you know what I mean. But when reading into it a bit, I was thinking actually there's a bit more complexity to it, to Kilmer's character, to how they act and whatnot, and things like that. And that apparently, I guess, came from having Eric Helhaney, who was a real-life US Spec Ops guy.
Yeah, he was like the consultant, right?
Yeah. And he also like helped train Kilmer and stuff like that. So I think that really added to a lot of this film.
Yeah. What's really great about this, and it sounds like it's actually quite realistic.
Yeah.
In how things are treated. And what's even more impressive is, although it's realistic, there's that element of the one-man army myth that really works in this. You get your James Bonds, your Mission Impossibles, you know.
Yeah.
And they're all characters that seem superhuman.
Yeah.
And although I guess
Robert Scott.
Yeah. Although Robert Scott seems like he's this one-man army, you don't actually see it in the same way you ever do in these other films, I don't think. That makes it a little more believable.
Yeah.
There's a little bit of detective work going on, but if I'm right, he would have been because someone calls him, what is it? A gunner?
Yeah.
A gunner sergeant or something? I think it's a similar role to what Jack Reacher is when he was in the military, that like military police sort of role.
Yeah.
It's that sort of rank. But you get the idea that he's been in like a lot of covered up cases and stuff because no one seems to know his real name.
Yeah.
They call him Robert Scott, but that's probably not even his real name.
No.
And there's a lot of like shadow around him in what he's actually capable of.
Yeah.
That makes him a really interesting character and a bit of a mystery to the audience. But what he also does really well in this, Val Kilmer, should I say, does really well in this, is he brings a great realistic coldness to the character.
Yeah.
It's a really fascinating film because as simple as it may seem, I think the more you think about it, the more complex you start to realise it is.
Yeah. Like there's a contrast between Derek Luke's character Curtis and Robert Scott's character as well.
Yeah.
And I quite like that. He's a bit more gung-ho, isn't he? Curtis.
Yeah.
And he questions more about what they have to do and things like that.
The morality.
Yeah.
And I think that leads to some of the incidents that happens with him.
Yeah.
It's more of an inexperienced thing, I think, as well.
Yeah. But it shows that Robert Scott, as a character, he's just been this sort of cold guy for so long as well.
But it's clearly something he does to protect himself.
Yeah.
To help make the right choices.
Yeah.
Because there's parts where his life's at risk and he has to make the right choice of what is he going to sacrifice for the mission kind of thing.
Yeah.
And it's really good.
I think
really
early on as well, Tia Texada's character, Jackie Black, she like says something about like she'd help him with whatever. And and he just outright no.
Yeah. And she's like, but that girl's going to need another woman when you get through this. She really seems to kind of understand what the mission was. You realise later on that she's a little more hardened than you would expect. Because I think what she says, even though it comes from an emotional place, you realise that she's not a particularly emotional person as it gets further into the film.
Yeah, and although more of a side character and background, she's not really a main character, but she is rather pivotal to the whole thing, and I think that really helps with the film as well. Like I said, the more you think about it, the more complex it seems than what's right in front of you as you're watching it, and I really appreciated that.
I mean, it starts as a simple case, and it kind of unfolds into something more than what you think as well, which is really good.
Yeah, very similar to Blind Horizon in that sense as well.
That's why we wanted to pair these together, I think, wasn't it?
Most likely, yeah.
That and they're a similar era, so there's a similar era of filmmaking there.
I would say you can definitely see that, but you can also see the differences in these two thrillers as well.
Yeah.
But that also comes from different characters involved and just different sort of stories they're telling.
But I think this is one of Kilmer's best roles.
Definitely. I'd love to have had a sequel or something to this.
That's the thing. You really could have franchised this if you wanted.
Yeah.
And for better or worse, it's a standalone.
Yeah. Like, it wouldn't have bothered me if a sequel was a bit more action heavy or something, because they thought this one didn't work well enough just being an outright thriller, you know what I mean? But
you could even go backwards.
Yeah.
For earlier stuff to flesh out Scott's character. Why he is how he is and so on as well, if you really wanted.
Yeah.
But I think personally, the less you know about him, the more interesting he is.
Yeah.
Like Wolverine. I loved Wolverine, and it was for that lack of backstory that made him this mystery box, that you don't really know what he's been through, and he doesn't know what he's been through. And I think it's got to the point now for me in the comics where they've explained too much about Wolverine that I really can't care about him anymore.
Yeah.
And I think that could have happened with Scott's character if they had maybe gone backwards to fill in blanks.
Yeah.
But anyway, it's a standalone movie, so we didn't get that.
No. And he's a great character as is, so.
Yeah. Do you want to get into some of the trivia?
Sure. Did you want to open with anything, or do you want me to?
You can.
Alright, I'll open with my favourite bit, and it's not really trivia, it's just Mark Isham does the music on this, and he does a great job. I always appreciate his work, but apparently he's a Grammy Award-winning jazz musician, so...
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
So I've got to listen to that, I feel.
Yeah, I do know.
I'll bring up the fact that he did one of my favourite films of all time, which is Running Scared, which was like around this time, and that's a great film. And he did The Accountant, but he went back for The Accountant too, so that upset me.
Yeah. He did The Mechanic though, right?
Yeah, he does the mechanic.
And he didn't do the mechanic too.
No, I don't believe so.
Maybe you don't like sequels.
Maybe, but he's a great guy to have on music, I feel, and he's very underrated as well.
Yeah.
Because that's all I seem to like when it comes to music. Is underrated. But also films. Cinematographer worked on other Mamet projects, or Mamet. And he also did The Corruptor, which is a great Chow Yun-fat and Matt Wahlberg.
Oh yeah, that is a good one.
Yeah.
Brian Cox plays Matt Wahlberg's dad in it.
Yeah, I weren't too sure it was that film at first. I had to scroll through the cast for a bit, and then I saw Brian Cox, and eventually I was like, thank God it is that
He
film.
did a Sam Shepard movie.
Yeah.
Blackthorn.
Yeah.
Sam Shepard plays Butch Cassidy. He was the cinematographer on that, and that's from 2011.
Great stuff.
I decided to bring it up. It seems that we've discussed Sam Shepard.
Yeah, he seems like a cool actor. I know him from other stuff, but I can't think what exactly. But I did like him in the two.
He's the cinematographer on Bunraku as well.
Oh yeah,
it was like a really abstract-y sort of artsy action film.
Yeah. There's another film similar to that I want to look into.
Oh right, okay.
Or it sounds sort of similar to that. It's the director of The Cell, and it's got Lee Pace as the lead guy. I think they'd pair well, but I'm not sure. I'll have to watch it. I can't remember the name of it.
But yeah, this film was quite well shot because it's got the right tone, lighting-wise, for the realistic approach.
Yeah.
It's also enough to make it feel cinematic and not documentarian.
Yeah, out of the sort of like espionage thrillers, and things like that follow these sort of characters, I actually think this is one of the better ones. I prefer this over the Jack Reacher films, I think.
But it's less about the action.
Yeah, and I'd say this is better than not Born Identity, but definitely all the ones after that.
It's kind of up there with Born Identity for me.
Yeah.
I love Born Identity and I love this, and they're very different films.
Yeah.
This is one of them sort of like spy, in inverted quotes, thrillers that really does get overlooked.
Yeah. I think as a character piece, it's amazing on that aspect.
Yeah.
I don't know if we said what else David Mamet had written or whatnot.
I believe he does Glengarry Glen Ross, this famous stage play. That's a movie with Pacino and Spacey, and I believe that's David Mamet.
Yeah, I saw that he'd wrote The Untouchables, Hannibal, Ronin, and then I believe he may have carried some stuff across from this film into the TV series The Unit that he created.
Okay, more of a reason to check The Unit out then, because
I
that's a show I've been wanting to watch for a while.
I think there's a phrase used in both, but that could also come from...
is it not the military thing? It's the one and what's the phrase? It's a proper. I think it's a proper military saying.
If he didn't use it in The Unit, he used it in something else. It came from an earlier work, and I can't remember what now. But yeah, I remember something. I don't know why I didn't write that down.
Yes, he does Glengarry Glen Ross.
Right.
He did the stage play for that, and he wrote the movie, and I think he actually directs the movie. And I don't know if he said, but he did Ronin as well.
Yeah, I did say that.
Sorry.
It got overshadowed by The Edge, I think.
Yeah.
It's such a masterpiece, that movie. We should cover it one time. The automatic knife in this movie, known as the Spartan, was made by Sevatech for this film.
Yeah, I saw that when we were watching it.
Yeah, I thought that's great. They made a knife for this film and named it after it. I thought that was brilliant.
I wonder sometimes if it's the poster work and the title for this that have put audiences off from seeing it. Not put them off, but maybe not grab their attention.
Yeah. Oh, that was something about this film as well. Warner Brothers, they wanted to retitle this to The Ranger because after test marketing, it showed that people may not have understood why it was called Spartan.
Yeah.
And then I'm thinking maybe that's why we get the strange bit of dialogue where they explain why the movie is pretty much called Spartan.
I was going to say, there is actually a line in the film that explains it being called Spartan.
So then I was thinking, was that line put in after that, or was it put in already? Was it already there?
I feel audiences probably just overlooked it. They went in there expecting like people in helmets and shields and swords, and like, why has he got a gun?
Yeah.
Why is it contemporary?
What's weird is when you said helmets, I was thinking, was Halo around 2004?
I think it would have been, wouldn't it?
Yeah, it was.
Original Xbox era.
Yeah. I really enjoyed this film anyway. Was there any trivia or anything you wanted to bring up? Or?
Oh, I mean, there's quite a lot of trivia on this. Did you see that Val Kilmer really appreciates this and likes it because of the lack of cussing compared to other Mamet plays?
Did you see that? I saw that, but I do also know that Val Kilmer has said a lot of great stuff sometimes in jest to projects he's worked on.
Yeah, I know. He's a funny guy.
Yeah. Some people take him too seriously, but I think
Yeah.
I think when you see other stuff he's said about this film and films he's worked on, I think he's very involved in them in a way, like personally.
This is, I think he clearly shed his diva attitude by this time as well.
Yeah.
He was known for being a bit of a diva, wasn't he?
Yeah.
But I wonder if most of that's come from The Island of Dr. Moreau. A lot of the stories on there, because him and Brando clashed, didn't they? He really hated doing that film.
Yeah, a lot of people seem to hate doing that film. That's a wild film to look into.
There's an amazing breakdown somewhere of the backstory of the behind the scenes of that film.
Yeah.
If I find it, I'll get it added to this show's description for people to check out.
Yeah, around that time, Kilmer just sounded like he was having some personal issues anyway.
He was going through a divorce. Yeah. He'd just done Batman Forever before Island of Moreau, where he thought that would be a big turn, and then he realised kids weren't actually all that interested in Batman.
Yeah.
But more so the gadgets and stuff, which I find really hard to believe being a kid at that time.
Yeah, he's a great Batman.
Yeah. Did you see what Kristen Bell had to say
about
Kilmer?
Yeah, I saw. I don't know if it's the same thing I've got, but there was a quite interesting bit, so I'll let you say it if you want.
This might not be the same thing then. Val was like a big brother. We were constantly roughhousing, which was good because Laura is supposed to have bruises everywhere. But he made me feel very safe in the process.
Yeah.
I don't think we've actually established who Kristen Bell is in this film, but she's the girl that's missing that he's gone looking for.
Yeah.
Who turns out to be a statesman's daughter, is it?
Yeah.
Who's running for president.
Yeah. It sounds like they had a good working relationship with Kilmer as well. I saw a thing where they asked Haney about who was the advisor, consultant on all this sort of stuff. They asked him about like how a hostage would react and all that sort of thing, and they worked that into the film as well. And it made me laugh while watching it. But when reading about it, it was like that's really good how they've like collaborated so well on this film. Like I said, there's a lot more thought into this film than you realise.
And apparently Mamet was rewriting scenes on set. Yeah. With nothing but a typewriter stacked on a cardboard box, apparently. Which I can't help but think, is that just a weird thing Val Kilmer said in an interview somewhere, joking and
I guess when you listen to the audio commentary on this film, I think a lot of people are taking it as fact. Yeah. And I'm genuinely thinking, I think Kilmer was having a laugh while...
Well, David Mamet's rabbi is in this film as like a little background character.
I don't know if that's true or not, because
Kilmer brings trivia, but Kilmer brings it up in there, and he's like, that's Mamet's rabbi there just getting shot. Yeah. He's like, I don't know why you would put your rabbi in a film you're making, not alone have him shot or something like that.
I just think it's a weird joke as well. I don't know if it's serious.
That's what's amazing with Kilmer. He jokes, but he's so dry as he delivers, isn't he? I'd have loved to have seen him have a turn for stand-up at some point. He's a talent that's going to be missed, I think. Not that a lot of his recent films were great, although some were.
Like I say, the films we've watched and looked at have been really good.
One particular really blindsided me with how good it was.
Yeah.
But we'll get there.
I don't feel we've watched a bad one at all.
Yeah.
And as far as I know, he's always enjoyable in his films. But I realised while looking him up that I hadn't even heard like half the stuff that he was in towards the end of his career, and I was just thinking, man, I don't understand that you had a lot of health issues and all that as well going on, so that didn't help.
This is what I was looking for when we were talking about cast. There's an actress in this, barely plays a part, called Alexandra Kerry.
Right.
She's just a bartender in the film
at
stage. But apparently many audiences became familiar with this film after its release during the 2004 United States presidential campaign due to Alexandra Kerry's supporting role as the bartender, as her father, John Kerry, was the Massachusetts senator and was running for president. It almost feels like an inverse of the film story.
Yeah.
Kilmer apparently said this was one of his favourite scripts he'd ever read.
Yeah.
He said there were several parts that I just could not get the details of because of David's writing style, and there's several areas where there could be several versions of the truth. But it sounds like the script for him was kind of that complex that he weren't sure how to deliver the lines because of how it's read when he says the truth. I'm guessing it means as like the emotional truth or the factual truth, because that's something actors want to look into when they read their lines and so on.
Yeah.
But I think this film is incredible, and I really like how it ends. The climax of this film, as it builds, it becomes something really unique, I think.
Yeah.
Apparently Kristen Bell's nudity was unintentional. Although I don't remember
if it was unintentional. Or
I don't remember the nudity.
I made one little note on this film, and I don't know if I'm allowed to say it or not without spoiling.
Let's hear it.
It's about William H. Macy.
Oh, go on.
I just wrote that I feel like it is a spoiler if I say.
Alright.
Because I put what the H is not for.
Hell.
Well, we know that, I guess.
Handbasket. Hamper.
Yeah.
Hinder. Have you seen who else was up for this for the role of Robert Scott? Which I'm glad they didn't get.
I hope it was Nicolas Cage.
You bang on.
Yeah.
If the world went a certain way. It was John Travolta.
Right, yeah. That's another one of them things I've read and I haven't noted it down.
I mean, there's a lot of shooting locations I could go into, but none of it really stands out.
Yeah. I can't see John Travolta doing this.
Derek Luke said he was sworn to secrecy, so I really can't get into what happened during our campout. But I can tell you that we went out with some gourmet military food. We ate like kings and queens and sang old spirituals around the campfire.
Well, if I'm right, weren't they eating the actual, like your military sort of food when they were camping out and whatnot? Like the
sort of dehydrated stuff. I think so, yeah.
When they were doing their training and stuff like that, 'cause a lot of the cast were trained as well.
Yeah, but that's what that quote was referring to. Their training they went to.
Yeah.
They went to high-level military operations, apparently.
Yeah. I think it helps the look of the film, but again, it's one of them things that I imagine most audiences don't really think about. But when you're watching it and you know it really helps bring the film to life and make it believable.
I think it's also more obvious for people that are familiar with military tactics and weapon handlings in general.
Yeah.
I don't think everyone in the audience is going to know he's holding his gun wrong.
Yeah.
Or that's not how you do that.
Yeah.
You know?
It sort of bothers me in films, especially when it's like your lead guy and you think he isn't holding his gun right. If it's really obvious as well.
Well, that's what I really liked about the John Wick films.
Yeah.
Because Keanu Reeves brought this more modern sense of weapons handling that hadn't really been highlighted in films before.
Yeah.
So it looks stylized, and in a way it is, but it's also quite tactically accurate as well when you see special forces online and stuff breaking down them sort of scenes. And it's something that John Bernthal spent a lot of time doing as well, working with guns for his Punisher and his roles in the Accountant films.
Yeah.
And I'm guessing Affleck has, because Affleck looked quite natural with the guns in the second one. I can't remember how he looked in the first, but
just as natural.
You do have that bias though, don't you? You're ironically Affleck blind, which is why I call you Daredevil.
People call it an afflection or something. You look confused.
Yeah. I'm guessing Franchise Pictures, it's a distributor.
Yeah.
Apparently it was one of their final releases for Franchise Pictures. The film was one of the last few releases with troubled Franchise Pictures, distributed by Warner Brothers in 2004. The other was The Whole 10 Yards, released soon after Spartan. So I'm guessing that was like a couple of their last films. This film marks one of at least 7 feature film collaborations with David Mamet and his acting half-brother, Tony Mamet. I don't think we mentioned Tony Mamet in it, because I'm not sure who he's in it.
No, I remember reading his
Chances are he's just like a small part. I get that sort of idea than him being a big part.
Lead guy.
We mentioned how great Clark Gregg is in this. For somebody that I really don't give two hoots about from the MCU that everyone seemed to like, everything I've seen him in outside of MCU stuff, he's incredible.
Yeah.
This being one of them. I actually made a note. I'll see if I find it. Clark Gregg is great in this. He brings a real commanding presence, which he should have had in the MCU.
Yeah.
He's too soft in the MCU. He don't feel like a serviceman at all, does he?
No. But they're aiming for comedy, and for some reason...
But S.H.I.E.L.D. are crap in the Marvel Universe compared to what they should be.
Yeah.
Oh my god, Val Kilmer would have been mint as Nick Fury. Sorry, I just realised that.
I think George Clooney.
I really miss films like this. There was a lot...
Yeah.
Not particularly like this, but exactly like this, should I say. But there were a lot of films more experimental and different and not your regular cookie-cutter stuff in the 2000s. And even the 90s that we seem to have gone back to cookie-cutter stuff now.
Yeah.
Just a bit sad. The cast of this in general is pretty interesting, I think. They're not your sort of go-to actors for any of these sort of roles, which I think helps.
Yeah.
I would say it's odd having Kristen Bell as the girl that's taken, but I think this might be her first feature film. Or her first...
I'm going to say she weren't as well known because she hadn't done Veronica Mars yet.
Yeah. I've put Kilmer looks like he's aged a lot more in these 2 years since The Salton Sea.
Yeah.
Which is another Kilmer classic, I think, now. I've also put, is that an old Nokia phone? There's times though where the film feels quite modern and you don't realise the era it's set, and then there's something like that really pulls you out, and it's like, oh my god, what is that phone? He could be playing Snake.
Pliskin? You just want to see Val Kilmer with an eye patch.
Yeah, you got me. Be badass, wouldn't it? In fact, I think there might be a film where it does wear an eye patch. I like both these films, but I love Spartan.
Yeah?
Yeah. If you're going to watch one of these, make it Spartan. If you've never seen Spartan, it should definitely be added to your list.
Yeah.
And watch it ASAP. I don't believe it's on any streaming services, though. It seems to be a bit forgotten, but it's very cheap to pick up on physical, but sadly hasn't had a Blu-ray release when I last checked.
I hope it does now.
I'll just check now, actually.
They should release it. They should release a Kilmer collection somewhere.
I'll make one.
You'll make one.
Tell a lie, it now does have a Blu-ray release.
Yeah?
Yeah. You're talking like 20, 30 quid, though.
Yeah.
And that's from eBay.
Yeah.
And the picture, I don't think, does it any justice. It looks like a knockoff of Cobra.
Oh, it's that one, yeah. Yeah, it's a really weird, like, photoshopped.
He's wearing a strangely clean leather jacket and aviators with a shotgun propped against his shoulder.
Yeah. Looks like he's doing his best Terminator.
Yeah.
It's really weird, isn't it? I didn't think that was a real picture.
I'm still not sure.
Put it this way, it doesn't happen in the movie, so I think there's a scene where he has a leather jacket, but I don't think...
I think I much prefer the weird poster that I'm also not a big fan of. It's the like blurred girl's face in the black and white with the
I like that one.
colour band over the eyes.
I like that one, but there's two different images that you can have over the eyes.
Is there?
Yeah, there's the one that's on your DVD, I believe, where it's Kilmer like aiming the gun, and then there's that one. And I prefer the one with Kilmer aiming the gun.
But yeah, you can now pick up this film on Blu-ray, which I guess I recommend.
At the cost of a poor cover.
Yeah. I mean, if you really wanted, you could print off another cover.
Yeah. I'm tempted to do that with some stuff.
Back to Val Kilmer. Any more you want to say? I think I've said all there is to say.
I think I've said everything about these films and whatnot.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'd agree that Spartan's the one to watch out of either of these. Not that I should be picking favourites, but it is the better one out of these two. And like I said, Blind Horizon is worth a watch as well. I'm not going to say.
Oh yeah, it's definitely worth a watch for sure. But there's something special, I think, about Spartan that really makes it stand out for sure.
And as we've paired them together, I think they would be a good pair on the same night as well. Just to sit down and watch.
Definitely watch Spartan second though if you're pairing them, because Blind Horizon won't look as good. But we did say its budget was 5 million as well, so it's
yeah, it's one of them again where
it's a challenge.
5 million, it's like a pretty good looking film on 5 million.
Yeah.
To say that we covered a film recently where it cost about over 30 million.
We're talking Punisher Warzone?
Maybe.
Why do you have to keep bringing this up?
Because I just still can't believe it cost 30 million. It just looks so bad. And there's films like that where they prove that they can make it on 5 million and it look good.
Yeah.
And
90s were a different time. No, that was 2000s, wasn't it?
2003.
Yeah.
There's just 5 years between that and Warzone. I don't understand. Is New York really that expensive to film in? It
probably,
because they've got to close roads and stuff. So yeah, probably. Just film somewhere else if you... I don't know.
Anyway, let's end on a bonus, shall we?
Yeah, what you got?
I was going to say that we're at the end of the show.
That's not a bonus, but
It is, because I'm going to tell them what films we're doing next week.
Alright, that's a bonus.
More Val Kilmer. Also, in the meantime, if no one hasn't, check out Val, the documentary from, 4 years ago-ish?
Probably.
Brilliant documentary.
Yeah.
So that's the end of the show. Thank you for joining us this week, and if you haven't already, click like and subscribe. A glowing review would also be appreciated. We are Cynic_critique on X and Instagram, and Cynic-critique on Blue Sky. Links to those and more can be found on the show's description. And tune in next week as we continue with our spotlight on Val Kilmer, as we discuss Thunderheart and The Ghost in the Darkness.
A rather cheerful fellow when you get to know you.